morning and welcome to what Malkwe likes to call your daily dose of sunshine. This is Sunrise Daily on Channels Television, a Friday morning, and I am all alone. Yes, indeed. Thank you all for tuning in. But we're going to have a wonderful time today on the show. Quite a lot of things to discuss. We're going to be building up on a lot of the stories that we've been bringing you all through the week. But before we get to that, let's show you the skyline. We're taking you to Niger State in this particular lovely view, Gurara Falls. Gurara, Niger State, to be precise. 30 meters high, this particular area, this particular waterfall. It's located in Gurara. It's a local government area in Niger State. Of course, that's not central Nigeria. And, you know, it lies along the Gurara River at the Suleja Mina Road. It's a very important tourism place for this country. It's got a bit of a checkered history, yes indeed. It's one of the major tourist sites though. There have been plans in recent times to turn it into a resort, and that resort is one that we are waiting for. We hope that the Niger State government, when they're able to get the security architecture together in this place and ensure that people can come to these places and not get attacked or kidnapped or be, you know, harassed by bandits and whatnot, if they can get that done and do that resort with that recreation center that they're planning. They even want to put a 7-star hotel in this area. Hopefully, if they get that ready and everyone can feel safe, it will be one of those places that we would love to go to. Now, you know, it's a very old waterfall, 1745. 1745 it was discovered. And you know how they like to say some Europeans discovered the place? No, in this one, there's a hunter. His name was Buba. Buba discovered this place in 1745, according to folklore, before some Europeans rediscovered it in 1925. They found it as a recreation center, you know. But it was worshipped before all of this drama. It was worshipped by the people in communities around this area. And, you know, they say it's named after two deities, Gura and Rara. So yes, very interesting history, but look at that beautiful waterfall. One of those things you just want to be quiet and just watch. But there you have it, our skyline, Gurara Waterfalls. And I love that we do this every time, so we can show you the beauty of our country. You know, Nigeria is so blessed. But you know what's lacking? The ability to ensure that these blessings don't go to waste. Look at that site from a distance. Beautiful waterfall there, and whatever plans the Niger State government has, or the federal government even, to make it a better tourist attraction, one that we'll all be very proud of and love to visit on holiday, so we can stop traveling outside the country to see waterfalls when we have one like this in Nigeria. Whatever they need to do, you know, they will be grateful for whatever it is that they need to do. But, you know, the security around these places have to be very serious, you know, because you can't have tourists coming in and giving bad stories. And we've seen that happen in some other places, like the one in Kaduna State, you know, but we don't want to talk about that. That waterfall there, cascading down those rocks, creating I can hear it in my head, such a beautiful, calming sound, and one that, you know, we should really do more to ensure more people are aware of this and come to visit from time to time. So yes, the Niger State government will be watching you to see how you get that done. But that's our skyline this morning, the Gurara Waterfalls. Beautiful sight there. All right, so quite a lot of things have happened, but we'll start off with this very disappointing story, and it's also from Niger State. And it's a trafficking story. One that has made the Immigration Service get some kudos, but made us wonder what's really going on. Just yesterday, the Immigration Service intercepted this Toyota bus that was carrying young people, about 21 young people from I think, Labule and Ibeto towns in Magama local government area in Niger State to main Soroa in Niger Republic. The Controller Service in Yobe State, Mr. Sani Sule Jega, made the disclosure. He was handing over the suspected victims to the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Well, Mr. Sule Jega adds that the victims were aged between 7 and 15 years, that the minors were traveling without any travel documents, and 2 people have been arrested. I think we have some of those details for you, so please listen up.
Intended traveling to Niger Republic, but they were intercepted by our officers at the border outpost unit in the area around Gaidam. The purpose of that particular unit is to checkmate all illegal entry into the country, because our core mandate is border security and migration management. So any illegal crossing will be stopped immediately until the right thing is done before a migrant cross over the shore of Nigeria to another destinations. As it is, they are migrants from Niger State, precisely Magamalo Hogame area, and they are minors between the age of 7 to 15. They are traveling without travel documents and other supporting documents to back up their journey. On that basis, we suspect the right thing must be done before they cross over. In view of the above, we decided to hand over to the appropriate authority for further investigation and necessary action.
Those further investigations, we'll be looking to see the results of those further investigations. Remember, that's from the controllers of the Immigration Service in Yobe State. They intercepted that bus. It was moving from Niger to Niger. So they intercepted them at Yobe. What's the story? What's going on? They said there's going to be an investigation to find out who's behind this. 2 people have been arrested already, according to the Immigration Service. But what is going on here? What's the story? Where are we moving people to? Who are the people being moved? It's a lot of these sorts of things happen. But at least the accountability part of it has started getting better. We've started asking questions, seeing these sorts of videos, and asking, who are these people? Where are they moving to? What's the story? How did we get here? Who are the people being moved? They look like children. Okay, so what's the story here? What's going on? Well, they say that an investigation is ongoing, so we'll be looking forward to the results, the outcomes of those investigations, and whatever, policies or whatever has to be done as a result of that investigation is one that we'll be looking out for there. But human trafficking is not acceptable, and we give kudos to the Immigration Service for intercepting that particular bus. Let's move on now to politics. All through the week, we kept talking about politics, particularly the People's Democratic Party. Well, negotiations are underway to ensure that they get the peace that they need to grow and get ready to wrestle power away from the All Progressives Congress in 2027. Are they going to get their house together? That's the conversation we'll be having all week. But we have this particular story here for you. The National Reconciliation Committee of the People's Democratic Party, the met with party governors and key stakeholders from the Northeast region to resolve these internal conflicts and reestablish what they're describing as a formidable force ahead of the 2027 general elections. Well, the acting national chairman of the party, Umar Damagum, actually assured all the party members and lovers of the People's Democratic Party that he would not serve the personal interests of any individual within the party, and that the party is greater than any person in that party. Says the collective strength of the party will ensure its resilience as they go into electioneering in 2027. But please take a look at this particular report.
Bauchi State is hosting 2 separate key meetings of the People's Democratic Party, the National Reconciliation Committee meeting and the PDP Northeast Zonal Caucus meeting. Prominent attendees include the governors of Bauchi, Adamawa and Taraba states, as well as the acting national chairman of the party. Former Osun State Governor Olagunsoye Oyinlola is leading the reconciliation team in discussing the challenges facing the party and strategies for rebuilding the party ahead of the 2027 general election.
We have adopted a model that the zonal chairman, together with the chairman of the states within the Northeast, we make up briefs for the reconciliation committee, which we will study and know exactly where the intervention of the reconciliation committee will occur. Then we'll be able to invite.
In response, Governor Fintiri assures that the Northeast region harbors minimal discord, emphasizing that their efforts extend beyond reconciliation to include thorough re-strategizing process.
We're not stopping here by taking too much time on reconciliation. We're already working ahead to see that we capture power for the good people of this country in 2027. Because Nigeria is bleeding. We are suffering. There is too much anger. The economic policy is still is not working.
The party leaders later converged for the Northeast Zonal Caucus meeting. The meeting discusses issues affecting the party, committing to confront the challenges.
We'll work with the National Assembly to minimize all those divisive tendencies, because our own is the chairman there. We'll make sure we bring the kind of initiatives that will not give the opportunity to those detractors trying to lead the party.
I want to assure members that this chairman here is not here to do any personal bidding of anybody. Nobody is above this party. We'll give you all the accolades and all the support, but when we see you are draining, then we will part ways with you. I want to give this commitment to all of you to assure you that the party is more than an individual.
The caucus resolves to swap leadership positions in the Northeast and implement microzoning to enhance internal cohesion. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
Thank you, Hajara, for that report. And it's a very important conversation. The role of opposition in democracy cannot be overstated. Opposition plays a role in democracy. And if the People's Democratic Party call themselves the biggest opposition in this country, then they have to play that role of opposition properly. Important to playing that role is a unity of that party. Whatever these impasses are, whatever these ups and downs are, need to be sorted out. We cannot be running a country where there is no opposition. And we've been hearing this from so many people, that there's no actual opposition in this country. It's impossible to get the proper benefits of democracy, the proper benefits of governance, if the government in power is not on its toes. One of the ways for the government in power to be on its toes is for them to know that there is an alternative. The people can say, we don't want you anymore, and get somebody else. Now, those people who are the alternative, the PDP, the Labour Party, and all the other opposition parties, the SDP, need to get their act together so that the Nigerian people can be able to hold the APC to account and threaten them when we need to. Let them know that we can actually move to someone else. So whatever these internal wranglings are, whatever has been happening over the years, whatever coalitions need to be done, whatever conversations, and I see so many conversations are going on right now, but that unity and having a united front, standing together and saying, look, we can give you better, Nigerians. Look at what we have. But we need to be able to trust that you can handle power when you get it. In many ways, when many Nigerians look at the fact that you have an internal party crisis, of course, every party has internal party crisis. It's a thing around the world. But when it gets to this sort of stage, you start losing the faith of the Nigerian people. Can we really trust them if they cannot handle each other? how are they going to handle the rest of us? So whatever it is that needs to be done has to be done real quickly. We're already in 2025. 2027 will come like a rocket, and everybody needs to be on board. Everyone needs to get it together. So the People's Democratic Party, it's good that the reconciliations are going on. Whatever is going on with the office of the National Secretary of the party, the issues with who the with who the president of that party, who the chairman of that party is going to be, when this next meeting is going to hold, whatever needs to be done. It's a great thing to see these conversations going on. And the governors who are part of this great party that ruled this country for a very long time, the governors and every stakeholder coming together to ensure that they solve these problems. We hope and pray that these problems are solved really soon. So good luck to the People's Democratic Party, and we'll be watching to see how things unfold in the days to come. We're going on a short break. When we come back, we'll have a conversation that is built on something else that we talked about during the week. We're talking about research institutes in Nigeria. What do? We had a lawmaker here not too long ago say, these people are asking for money and not doing anything with the money. What can they say? He was talking about Nasseni, of course. What can they say that they have done in the past 1 year, 2 years, let's say 5 years? Well, we took a look at other research institutes across the country, how much money they've been given, and what they bring to the table. We'll get to that conversation right after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Joining us for our conversation on research institutes in Nigeria and how we can use them optimally. How can they be as productive as they can be? How can they help change the course of our country, especially when it comes to food and agriculture and medicine? We have with us the founder and CEO of Binder Knowledge Center in Yola, Adamawa State, former director at the FMS&T, and former DG CEO of NOTAP, Mr. Umar Binder, joins us in the studio.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
It's good to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
And joining us via Zoom, well, not via Zoom, from our Lagos studio, Mr. Wellington Oyibo, professor and consultant medical paramedical parasitologist. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Wellington.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's kick it off. Looking at, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Binder.
Yeah.
Research institutes in Nigeria have been front burner for the past few days, mostly because of what happened at that budget screening process. And at the time, the focus was on Nasseni. What do they do? Well, how can we justify all this money? You've been in that space for a very long time. Talk to us a little bit about research institutes in themselves. I think we have over 60 in Nigeria. What were they created to do for the country? And in your view, are they meeting up with that particular role?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I've been in that sector all my life, to be quite honest. And research institutions in Nigeria, 60 is very, very meager. There are over 300 of them.
Over 300?
In this country. All you need is to read the Steve Oronsanya report, and you will see the myriad of research institutes.
Well, the question at the time was the difference between institutes and centers. So you can have a research center that's not really doing the job of a research institute.
In Nigeria, the names are interchangeable.
Oh,
there are commissions, there are councils, there are centers, there are research institutes. They are all mandated to do a bit of research or core research. Now, coming to the question is that research institutes globally are established not necessarily as universities or colleges of education or polytechnics. They're specifically mandated to study, to investigate, and come up with very, very superior knowledge on how you can solve your problems. If it is a water problem, There are research institutes to do with water. They know the sources, they know the quality, they know how to process it, and that knowledge is now used further to now provide better life for people. If it is agriculture, like you say, some research institutes are only to do with seeds. Others have only to do with chickens. Others are only to do with sheep and cows. Others are to do with perennial crops, and so on and so forth. And again, it's for them to generate that data on how do you generate the seeds? What is the quality of the seeds? For example, in palm oil, how do we come up with seeds that germinate quickly? How do we come up with seeds that can produce a lot of oil, of either the red oil or the kernel oil? How do you come up with seeds that can grow quickly, very short, and start giving you? So this knowledge is now translated into what we call as technology. And that technology is used in industry, and then you find that people are living well. Now, when these things are working, nobody needs to clap for you. Nobody needs to have a conference to say, hey, you're doing well. You will just see the lives of your people getting better. Poverty will come down. Jobs will be available. Money is being created, meaning the knowledge is translating to making your life better. But when you see poverty is growing higher, when you see misery everywhere, your rural areas are bad, your agriculture production is primitive, your jobs are not there, then you only have numbers. You only have buildings and people in them paid salaries with a bit of laboratory playing up and down, but that knowledge to change your life is not either generated or is generated and is not utilized very well.
So it is not meeting up with its role?
It is not. This is just a reality. I mean, although our culture, our culture is you clap for when a governor builds a road, you come up as a big ceremony, you clap. That's what he's supposed to do. Nobody should clap for you. When you have a big project, governmental, there's a huge ceremony. But this is a culture we build. But for research institute, for knowledge, for science, for technology and innovation, you don't need to clap for anybody.
I mean, there was one, I think I remember this one. There was a bollworm resistant cotton.
Yeah.
I think it was during the Buhari administration that I saw that some research institute in Nigeria was able to come up with cotton plants that are resistant to bollworm, because that was what was affecting our cotton industry.
Yeah.
In the time that you've been in that space, what would you say has stood out for you in terms of research that has changed our technology or added to the technology that we use to solve things in whatever sector, whether it's medicine or agriculture, whatever it is?
Yeah, but you see...
In that space, have you seen any that has stood out for you?
You see, the thing is, it's a chain, it's a value chain. A research institute is not an industry. A research institute is not a manufacturing facility. It is supposed to generate the knowledge. That knowledge has to move to another sector, which is the development institutions, to develop it into technology. For example, this cotton-resistant thing. When the scientists come up with the resistance, this is either the seed or the cotton, they cannot be able to set up a big farm and granaries and start, spinning cloth and so on and so forth. That is beyond them. So that knowledge is supposed to be protected, which is what we call as intellectual property right, and then moved to industry, so that industry can now utilize it in their own industrial way to produce these things. Now, in Nigeria, it's very, very difficult to actually pinpoint a technology that has come out of a research institution, gone into industry, and is changing life. But in the agriculture sector, there are some. In the NIPRID, the chicken people who are actually studying people in Zaria, they've come up with a breed of chicken that can lay an egg every day. And that is an industry. To a certain extent, it did move. In Cheddar, they came up under the Pharmaceutical Institute. They came up with a sickle cell anemia drug that is one of the best in the world, and they managed even to take it up to making capsules. But then something happened. But that affected the lives of people. There is the seed development.
What happened?
Well, what happened is that, again, we are not very good in celebrating success in our country. When we succeed, we turn around, quarrel about it because money will start coming up. And we're not very good in managing funding. We try to be very corrupt about it. We try to blacklist it. Before you know, that drug actually got into a problem and then it stopped. Industries don't mess up with this type of thing. You cannot mix up civil service, research institute, scientists, and so on, and then get an industrial product. Everybody has his own. Once you start mixing it, you lose the value, and then it disappears.
Mr. Wellington Oibo, you've heard what Mr. Binder has been talking about. Let's hear your views on research institutes. And I think I also want to get you to speak to us a little bit, Mr. Oibo, on the financial bit of it, because they get funding, a lot of funding that has been questioned. And listening to what Mr. Binder has said, should they still be getting that funding?
Oh, yes. So thank you very much. And I'm quite pleased to be here. I will speak from experience, and I'll speak still from what we have done, being the pioneer Director of Research and Innovation of the University of Lagos. And I'm a researcher. So basically, of course, we understand this program and this discussion is coming up because it's apt. We are worried about what the research institutions are doing. We have expectations from these research institutions in Nigeria. But I think basically life is dynamic. You know, the research institutions, they have a mandate. They were created by law, established for certain purposes. And but what we see right now is to begin to see where knowledge is and how the knowledge is generated. And of course, the output of research is clear. Of course, generating data, but far beyond data, but that's the very first step. And then the preparedness of these centers to deliver what is translational becomes very critical because, you know, you generate knowledge and you translate it and then you transact it. It goes within the pipeline. And of course, I agree. All of this is a pipeline. So where does the research go to? And how much of our challenges has it solved? Why are we not seeing them? So my take here really is this. Yes, we have these research institutions in Nigeria, and government is funding. I will put that funding with lots of query, because one of the things you find out right now, do these institutions have the infrastructure for them to do this work? And if not, why not? And then it comes to the model with which these research institutes are working. You look at the remuneration. What do you expect? You know, I mean, I will hypothesize clearly for you. You know, in this program, the inputs is very important. The inputs into this personnel, into these institutions, then the expectation, mandates, monitoring, they're all critical. But basically, we may go back to the mandate and the strategies. You see, and these are very important. So strategies will govern what the outputs are and how you can do that. We used to have these catalytic ecosystems. We work in ecosystems, like in the universities, you can generate knowledge through teaching, and then you do research. And then that is where most of these institutions have been most times. And then you say, oh, you hear of research outputs being put on the shelf. It's on the shelf. They're on projects. They're not utilized. They will not, because there must be a strategy of translation. And that's where the collaboration with the industry is important. And that is where all the knowledge management, the IP, and all the incubation, where you begin to see entrepreneurship developing, how it can come. So the strategies are very important. The investments in these research institutions is so critical. The need to look at the model of operation, the appointment of the CEOs, whether it's through competitive appointments, so we make sure those come in, they are there to work out the mandate and they are doing all of this. These are issues, you know. And so that investment, which is not the only thing in terms of finances, it goes to strategies. What does the country need now, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in security, whether it is in medicine. If not, if we don't have it, you will not have the flow across the value chain and how it can now create the prosperity that we desire. So, and that's how it works. First, one of the things we did at the University of Lagos was to really institute and have the university approve the University of Lagos Research and Innovation Policy. The industry cannot come to you when your practices do not align with global best practices. You will be doing stuff on your own. you will not expect to have the right output. Of course, because it's a pipeline, the research institutions should be able to generate that partnerships, those partnerships, strategic partnerships for the output that they want. So that's,
Prof,
yeah. So,
Prof, just so we don't lose our thinking, our thought process. Sorry to cut in, Professor Ivo. Yeah. Just so we don't lose that thinking process there. You mentioned it there, the strategy of translation. Could you help us expand on that a little bit? And what are the loopholes that we have not allowing this translation to happen? And I'm guessing that the translation would mean that it's now beneficial to the Nigerian people.
So thank you. So it comes to the governance. You know, whatever you do, it comes to knowledge management. So the IP processes must have to be enshrined, and I know NOTAP had tried to do quite a lot on those, but that's from the side of NOTAP. Now, from the remit of the institutions, the governance system where knowledge could be protected, therefore the industry guys can come and say, we're working on this, we want to share this with this research institute to explore more. First of all, if they have the infrastructure, yes, they can go ahead. Now, even if they have it, that governance system will mean that whatever is brought was not taken over by somebody else. And it has to be protected, you know. So the secrecy around it, the understanding of that process is what we facilitate. Then, of course, the industry becomes, or even other people outside of the research institutions become confident that their idea will not be stolen, their idea will not be corrupted. They want to see it blossom, and they can nurture it through the various processes and pipeline into having the output. So that's very critical, and there are several of those processes which should be happening real time, convincing both in knowledge management. So they are protecting the discussion right from the go by signing the non-disclosure. The management of those activities are critical. So I think those are the pipeline thing, making the doors open that we can come and bring very important ideas, and the ideas will not go amiss.
I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Binder.
Yeah.
Around Christmas last year, and I'm looking, I had to get it because it was the minister that actually said it, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Yeah. They were proposing spending 180 billion naira on federal universities of agriculture and research institutes in the 2025 proposed budget. And then for the breakdown, 54.38 billion was to be allocated specifically to federal universities of agriculture as part of the ministry's total 636 billion naira allocation. Is that the solution, pumping more money in?
Well, you see, Federal universities of agriculture, when they were established, they were put under the supervision of the Ministry of Agriculture. But remember, Ministry of Agriculture, just because of that name, agriculture, but university system is a totally different institutional system than ministries. Ministries are policy-making institutions or systems. Then their agencies are the policy-implementing structures of government.
I'm fine.
Universities, just like the professor said, are used to build capacity massively to produce young people in those areas that of focus so that they can be able to get out. They can become researchers, they can become industrialists, they can become businessmen in that sector. When you mix these two, you say that the University of Agriculture should be supervised by ministries. You miss the whole point. You have started messing it up. And then the budgets. I mean, close your eyes. You've been to university before. All the money that you share there, imagine you have the lecture theaters, you have the lecturers. These lecturers are trying to grow. I was part of that system, from graduate assistant to assistant lecturer, to lecturer 2, to lecturer 1, senior lecturer, associate professor, up to professor. This thing doesn't come because your king is related to the vice chancellor. You grow like this based on research. If you don't make research and you don't publish, you will not grow. So research is happening. All this is not what a ministry does, but the ministry can take advantage of it. The challenge in our system is that we've not understood our structure. You know, we don't reflect on the development of our people based on our knowledge. So like Professor said, industry should relate to the researchers, but this industry is taken in a very colonial way. We think when you talk of industry, it has to be Nestle, it has to be Cadbury, it has to be Dangote. No. My mother and your mother can be industry. My mother was very good in making yogurt, a Fulani woman who is doing real fermentation work. My mother can extract oil out of groundnuts and fry kuli-kuli. This is a scientific process. My mother can use palm oil, and she manufactures her alkali and mix it up, esterification, to produce soap. But it is primitive. You get what I mean? Research from the neighboring polytechnic or university can actually change my mother. That is industry linkage. My mother can now start making better oil, better soap, better yogurt, and then gradually packaging it. For her to do this, then other institutions will come like Smedan that gives loan, Bank of Agriculture that give loan. My mother can take 50,000 naira, utilize that knowledge from the research institute. Before you know, I would have gone to university with a big car, because that is the linkage of the research and industry and all this funding. Nigeria has all that. Nigeria has the pool to generate this knowledge. Nigeria has the funding organizations. Nigeria has a big pool, people who need knowledge, from my mother up to the industrial. This is a bandwidth. However, to connect this together, Nigeria is not very good.
Why? What's the problem?
The reason is, first, I don't think our governmental or political system recognizes knowledge. I speak a lot on universities. I go and give a lot of information based on knowledge, research that I have done. But even just to give you air ticket to travel from here to Calabar, they complain, oh, Dr. Bindi, we cannot afford. Please travel. This is lack of understanding of what knowledge is. I'm giving you superior knowledge. That's number one. Two, look at how our National Assembly and the State Assembly people do with their constituency projects. We are here, we see on TV. When they go to deliver things, you see sewing machines, generators, and so on and so on, all imported from China. You have your knowledge at home, but you cannot see the products on the table when it comes to... This is where the jobs are. This is where the young people can develop. So somebody should say, hey, we can only do soaps to our communities from Dr. Bindi's mother. So how can we do that? Oh, Dr. Bindi's mother had to produce 10 boxes every day. That is where knowledge is required. This understanding of trying to power your knowledge to be useful for you is very lacking in our country.
I want to get Professor Wellington to break down. Is there, Prof, what's the problem? Is there something we're not seeing? Is it possible that the value chain is not beneficial to maybe politicians in many ways? Which is why, as Dr. Binder said, research institutes are treated very colonially in the way that they are run, and that value chain and the linkages necessary are not being done properly. And then also, I want to speak to funding. Is the solution throwing in more money?
Okay, so I'm happy that Dr. Binder has raised that. You know, for us, it's a mindset issue. So whether it's understanding, but we need to know how did successful countries become successful. So we have the Global Innovation Index. We see India, we see the Asian countries, we see the countries in Europe. You go there, check for competitiveness and how they've done their work. And these things are not hidden. So when it comes to what do the politicians understand, again, I will throw it up into a bigger discussion. How do we present our matters? But you know, in our parlance here, we talk about political will and how that can be done. Of course, that is very important. When you have the political will, there are things that can be achieved. But we have to begin to see the opportunities we have and how communications can be triggered. And when those communications are triggered towards purpose, then you find out that the changes we desire in terms of output is not happenstance. And therefore, some of these things can happen between regimes and tenures of those who are CEOs in those organizations or those who lead the university. It becomes entrenched as a process. So again, yes, the understanding may not be there, but these are the points. You say, what do you want to call around this? Why are we not making progress? Do we really know that good research support and all of this, the research institutions or even the universities, being major knowledge producers, and are properly integrated and directed? And I will talk about the funding. When you talk about funding, what kind of funding are we talking about? Because in the portfolios of research institutions, you have your recurrent expenditures. And so if all the funding goes into payments of salaries, and where you don't even have good salary structure to attract the kind of personnel that is needed, then you are not making any progress. What are those in the capital votes? You go to research institutions and they have electricity challenge, as we have right now, even for the universities. They can barely get electricity to do their work. Even though, of course, research in renewable energy and having the energy transitions are part of what we should be getting on board quickly. That's one of the benefits of what research can do for us in terms of energy, and how we are generating to reduce the cost of production of solar energy and stuff like that. So what is that funding for? Were they giving funding, those billions of naira, on a particular mandate to express? And like I said earlier, what do you do when you have the opportunity? Do all of us in our policy setting, because we're all involved in policy imperatives, the research to policy process has a communication to it. How do I get additional funding? How do the private organizations get attention to doing what they have to do? There are governance and strategies. So that's what we're saying, that the model of operating what we do, how funding should be invested in research institutions and universities, they're so critical that for most of the funding that is needed for research, they never provided, but for TED Fund, for instance, and of course, independent approaches in grant writing to generate that kind of resources. But by the way, I mean, whatever way we look at this, we all have our blames, both from the research institutions, of course, from core government and those who allocate resources. What can we do in the absence of anything? Can we write? Can we be involved in independent resource mobilization for particular projects that we want to highlight? Do we understand that research is actually a gateway, to prosperity? And I like the simple example from Dr. Bande. People come to say you are sick, you won't go to the hospital. Our parents, people with ideas, should go to institutions and be able to say, I have this and I want to move it. I mean, when we talk about this kind of discussion, is leapfrogging our ideas into outputs. So, yes, some understanding issues, and part of what I'm really expressing here, a targeted investment is needed. And when I say targeted investment, I mean, yes, I'm giving you 1 billion naira, and this is what I expect from you. So that's targeted investment. And what do you need to get this done? How do we go?
I want to come back to Mr. Binder on that. Because this conversation started when Nasseni went to the National Assembly with their budget. And a lawmaker there, Honorable Alex Ukweche, he said, what do you people do? Why should we give you this money? Okay. What have you done in the past 5 years? Give me something that has happened in the past 5 years that we can hold on to and say, okay, because you do this, we should give you this money. That's why it started with Nasseni. And for those who don't know, Nasseni is a national agency for engineering infrastructure, right? National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. So they should be bursting at the seams with innovations. They should be inundating us with things that will be like, what do we need this one for? No one needs a garlic cutter. We can do it by ourselves. You understand what I mean? They should be churning out things that make us think, oh, what is happening? What is happening, But it does feel like we do not get that, that sort of output from them. Now, Prof has said targeted investment. If we're giving you money, it has to be for this and this and this. Is that the way to go?
Well, yes And yes, you see, as you said, it started with Nasseni. I used to be the director in the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology supervising Nasseni.
Okay.
And Nasseni, you see, that last word in its name, infrastructure, is the key word. Nasseni is supposed to be establishing science or research infrastructure for science, engineering infrastructure for translating the knowledge into tangible things. Nasseni is expected to be a catalyst to make sure that patents and other intellectual properties are coming out. If I were to just digress a little bit, I refer to Prof. Prof is the director of the Research and Innovation Center. Yeah. I was a director of Research and Innovation Center. That was my last job in the academia before I left. If you take University of Lagos, very powerful university, globally known, and then you ask University of Lagos, in the last 10 years, how many scientific papers that have come out of your research? How many conference papers have you written? In fact, don't take the whole paper. Take what we call as the abstract, which is the summary at the top. For the last 10 years, in University of Lagos, because of their vibrance, it will fill up a lecture theater. The papers just of abstract will fill up a lecture theater. Ask University of Lagos, clap for them, they are doing very well in research. But then ask University of Lagos, of this knowledge, how many patents do you have? Meaning, you have now reworked on this knowledge, come up with very tangible technologies that are usable to solve people's problems, to make life better, to create jobs and wealth. You will have a big question mark. Even if you have a bit of the patents, ask University of Lagos again. And you can ask any university you like. I'm not just targeting in Lagos. Of these patents you have, which is supposed to be creating jobs, which is supposed to be creating wealth, how many has actually moved to Dr. Bindi's mother or Nestle or Dangote to now make sure that the professor who has come up with this technology is getting a little bit, because that is the secret of transferring technology. The licensing says, if you make a profit of 100 naira, give me 20 naira. If you make a profit of 100 billion, give me 20 billion. So you're not supposed to see creaky, poor professors in universities. You're supposed to see professors who are opening their chests, driving wonderful cars, living in big buildings, because the knowledge is translating to industry. I am telling you, as you move on from the research, you have a big pool, but as you taper towards industry, it disappears.
I was asking, is it possible that there's something we don't understand here? There has to be a reason.
I think it is.
There has to be a reason why these things do not translate. Is it possible? Because I like to find where the problem is.
Where the problem is.
If I feel like this is not going to be beneficial to me, I will kill it.
Yes. You see, the thing is, it's a colonial hangover, and it is also what I call as the diaspora, the inefficiency. In our country, our education system is still a literacy education system. It is not an entrepreneurial education system. People go to get certificates. I have a BSc, I have an MSc, I have a PhD. In fact, even us at the highest level, this professorial level is all the part of the colonial thing. When you are an academic, you want to grow quickly to become a professor, even if you have not actually impacted anything, even in your own community, even to yourself. So this is very colonial. Nigeria has to change this to become entrepreneurial. What you teach must affect our system. What you research must get into the system to change lives. And nobody, like I used to say, nobody needs to clap for you that you are doing very well. You will see that poverty will come down. You will see that insecurity will disappear. You will see corruption disappearing. These are indices that your knowledge is working for you. As long as you see poverty is climbing up, as long as you see youthful energy is going into insecurity, as long as you see that corruption is increasing, it means your knowledge is not working for you.
Professor Wellington Oyibo, just so we can get your final thoughts on this particular matter, if we're looking at, I want to be able to read a message that somebody just sent. In fact, we have two messages. Honorable Ademola Alalade, he says, research institutes are set up to investigate certain issues to create positive impact on the people and country. This is missing in Nigeria, as most research institutes in the country are not functional. Government needs to invest positively in existing research institutes. And then Festus also gave us this message here. He says, it's not surprising that our research institutes appear not to be working, because most of our top talents have been leaving the country in droves. Our research institutes must be well led and funded if we must attract top talents in the sector. So I'm going to get your thoughts on that, Professor Onyibo. Is it the talents that is missing? Based on what I've heard both of you say this morning, it's not the talent that is missing, it's the will to translate those talents into actual things that can be used. What should the government be thinking about going forward as we try to build this economy that is supposed to help us all this year?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So, like I said, coming as a buzzword from this discussion is the targeted investments. And you can unpack it in different ways. What we have seen, especially from our own setting at the University of Lagos, I'll give that as an example, and as a hope, and just to let us know that all is not lost. Because what we have seen now, even from the National Universities Commission, they are highlighting this. TED Fund is highlighting this. The directors of research in universities are being reconfigured and recalibrated using the capacity access in universities, and of course how intellectual assets can be managed and put to better use. We came from a position sometime around 2015 and 16, for instance, in the University of Lagos, when the then Vice Chancellor said, I have had this experience, this is what we needed to do, that and that, and the pipeline was set in. In fact, at the university, you can count the number of grants that were coming in independently. But as we speak right now, the University of Lagos is able to attract very huge quantum of independent grants away from government. This is because of the leadership of the chief executive officers, I mean the vice chancellors, one after the other, and now even to the current vice chancellor, who has now said, I'm not going to sit down in the university, I'm going to reach out. So you see, by just even reaching out, you come to the University of Lagos campus, for instance, you have all the translational bits, and the ecosystem has been expanded. And then just to put it there, that missing link we can trigger and close from within. And then the area where the external part of governance and government can be done, yes, can be opened, so there is a better understanding. But the one from within is so important. So that example, we saw a unique need, like for instance, the University of Lagos and just like some other universities, must come out with their research reports. So we had research reports that tells you, don't allow these reports to be scattered. Annual research reports. And when those research reports are not done early, maybe in 2 years, they put them together and they're available on the website. So those who want to know what is there and there and there, they can easily find it. And that's good progress coming from an internal decision process that from the University of Lagos, I can tell 3 vice chancellors are on the Saturday and they're on it. The current vice chancellor, Professor Gunshola, is on top of it. The research report comes in, and then the innovation bit was tweaked. And now we are seeing within them students, and therefore the entrepreneurial platform was expanded. So we are seeing students owning businesses now. But we can do more. I just got one of my colleagues from the University of Auckland doing something. He said, I just opened my company, and that's what Dr. Binder was saying. There's prosperity in all of this. He said, I had this knowledge in neurology, and I want to know why this brain injury is doing that. I have found out this and that. I tell you, the young professor now has his company in the university. So, of course, that's the hope line I'm talking about. When it gets there, it becomes sweeter, and then the country's benefits in terms of prosperity. So I've just unpacked the internal stuff that can be done, and then, of course, the bigger one that government can do. Really, of course, with this time, we know it's not too easy running these institutions based on their requirements and needs. But that very huge investments is something that must come. And when you have that, then the partnership is good. The pharma companies can come and meet you. The small industry can come, and you can turn their stuff quickly, leapfrog their growth process, and they can have more profits. So that's what I can say here in terms of, and that strategic moves are very important. There are policy documents in the University of Lagos and, of course, other institutions that attracts these people. You don't have the policy, nobody comes to you, because most likely you could have intellectual theft, and then you may not be able to properly deliver. So that strategic framework, the understanding that you cannot do alone, even if you're a university and research institutions, must come in from an internal process of a framework that can help those that are within. Of course, opportunities for exchanges, they are all part of the strategic thing as well. Those who are in those bits, they're invited to come in, and then they grow up, and things happen gradually. In that area, in that remit of colonial knowledge mentality. So you see that things happen and the ice is thawing. And all we now need to do is let's accelerate the process. What's happening in University of Lagos is happening fully in University of Maiduguri, is happening in the other places, and then we'll see the outputs. Our youth will not need to go outside because we have quite a lot to do, and we can sit here.
Very important point that you made there. Like you said, the takeaway today, Prof, targeted investments, not just throwing money at these institutes and not seeing any benefits from them. But I want to thank you very much, Professor Wellington Oyibo, for being with us on the program and for sharing your thoughts on how our research institutes can be more beneficial to the Nigerian people. Thank you.
My good pleasure. Thank you.
And then, of course, Mr. Umar Bindir, founder, CEO of Bindir Knowledge Center, Yola, Adamawa State, and former director at Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. Thank you very much for being with us on the program.
Thank you. But the takeaway thing is that Nigeria, love your country very well, and also learn to partner to be stronger.
Partnering to be stronger. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
It's time for Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. When we come back, we'll be talking ECOWAS again. Stay with us.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Minnie John McCoy. It's time to do just about 30 minutes of business. To start from the global space, as usual, telling you what's happening in the global oil space this morning. Prices rose on Friday as markets are weighing in the threat of tariff. Seems no end to this, at least until we see a proper pronouncement on it from President Donald Trump on Mexico and Canada. This was a market mover yesterday. We see it still moving the market today, Friday. The two largest crude exporters to the United States. That could take effect this weekend. Remember, he said from the 1st of February, that's tomorrow. So we'll see what is going to happen from tomorrow. Look at the numbers for this morning. It's a gain of 38 cents on Brent, but it hasn't left $77 level this week. It's been around that. We haven't seen it reduced from 77 or increase. So this is the Naira we can get the oil. So it's $77.25. The more active April contract was at 76, however, and that's an increase of 34 cents for the crude of the United States West Texas Intermediate crude. That added 49 cents to $73.22. Just a very sluggish movement around oil because it's been more of the threat of tariff from President Donald Trump. From tomorrow, we'll see what pronouncement comes and what impact it would have. Now, for the week for these two, we see Brent is set to fall about 1.6%, while WTI declined by 2%. However, for the month of January, remember today is the last day in the month of January, last trading day, last day of the month. Brent is set to gain 3.6%, and that's his best month since June 2024, and WTI is set to climb 2% for the month. Trump has threatened to impose a 25% tariff as early as Saturday, that's tomorrow, the first day in the month of February, on Canada and Mexican exports to the United States if those two countries do not end shipment across U.S. borders. And then we see the Naira, see the NAFEX depreciated. That's a big move from what we had at the close of trade 2 days ago, which we reported yesterday. We remember it was a 17 Naira plus % added on the NAFEX platform. But today we see a decline of 5 Naira, 18 kobo about that. That equals 0.34% to close at 1,521 Naira 91 kobo after it opened at 1,516 Naira 73 kobo. NFEM, the more active market, is here, closed at 1,500, gaining more than on NAFEX, and so it's added 0.51% yesterday. CBN rate added even much more as expected, and we know the CBN governor was really active yesterday. Maybe that would add some sentiments to the market, being the head of that regulatory body. So we see for the first time in months, I should add that on the CBN rates, an average of the transaction value of yesterday, Thursday, Naira was at less than 1,493 Naira. That's for the CBN rate. So there was a significant influx of dollars from the FPIs. It led to a strong appreciation. That's, of course, on the CBN platform, and the Naira there gained 13 Naira at the close of trade on Thursday. Now, yesterday, the Federal Inland Revenue Service set a revenue target of 25.2 trillion Naira for the year 2025 fiscal year. The executive chairman of the service, Mr. Zaka Dideji, made this known during a management retreat, and that happened in the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. It adds that 19.4 trillion was targeted in 2024, and the service generated more than that, 21.6 trillion within the year 2024.
The executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service is leading staff of the agency to the 2025 Strategic Management Retreat. Primarily, the meeting reviewed the achievements of the service in 2024.
Last year, we had a deliberate strategy where we said we are not going to extend the filing deadline, neither are we going to do this automatic waiver of interest and penalty that taxpayers have now become used to, and that was affecting our performance. Now, we did not do that, and we still surpassed our targets convincingly. So we feel that that was a very good strategy. We did it in 2024. And I'm very confident in 2025 we will also do it again with active collaboration and the support of every staff.
Over the years, the meeting also reviewed the expectations for the 2025 fiscal year.
As we step confidently into 2025, we must carry forward the momentum of these achievements with renewed energy, a clear vision, and meticulously designed roadmap. This year, our focus will be on consolidating and institutionalizing our internal strength to ensure long-term resilience and operational excellence. This year, our mission is both ambitious and transformative, to build a service of excellence defined by the expertise of our people, the modernization of our facilities, and innovative use of technology.
Aside from revenue generation, other issues like revenue leakage and the tax reform bills were also discussed.
We are confident with the professionalism of our staff that we'll be able to achieve 25 trillion that we've committed. Blocking of leakages comes from having implementable laws, because why you see people going away with our revenue is because there are lapses in the law. And in the wisdom of Mr. President, we send the bill to National Assembly. Hopefully, the bill will be passed this quarter. So it is our strategy to block all identified loopholes and the use of technology.
Over the next 2 days, the retreat plans to discuss more strategies to achieve the 2025 corporate plan for the fiscal year.
So I wonder where or how the reforms, the tax reforms that's set to be, effected, I think, from the second half of this year, how that will fit into that over 25 trillion Naira target of the Federal Inland Revenue. Watch and see as 2025 unfolds. Now, let's a bit of corporates and tell you that FBN Holdings PLC has released its year-ended December 31, 2024 unaudited group financial statements, indicating a 42% year-on-year increase in profits before tax. to now land at 862 billion naira, while gross earnings surged 113% year-on-year to 3.33 trillion naira. Net interest income we see grew by 155. So you see profit before tax went up almost 150%, 142 to 862 billion naira. Gross earnings was up 113 to 3.33. Net interest income also increased 155% to 1.39 trillion. Customer deposits, meaning more people patronize FBN, First Bank of Nigeria, 17.29 trillion naira. Total assets also went up to 26.54 trillion, up from 16.94 trillion. Loans to customers increased by 2.797 trillion, closing at 9.4 trillion naira also. Now, according to the Group Managing Director of FBN Holdings, Mr. Adebowale Oyedeji, the strong growth recorded on net interest income is a testament to FBN Holdings' growth on net interest is a testament to FBN Holdings' competitive and evolving market landscape. He notes that but for the impairment charge of 411 billion naira, the PBT, that's the profit before tax, would have been 1.3 trillion naira. The group has also recorded a higher average earnings yield of 16.71 on the back of growth on loan volume and other earnings assets for the year compared to 10.69% in 2023. And this, he says, is in spite of higher costs of funds in 2023. To other corporates now, in furtherance of efforts to strengthen their commitment to improving the ease of doing business indices, the federal government and Ogun State government have launched a $12 million agrochemical plant, Springfield Agro Crop Protection Chemical Plant. That's what it's called, and it's located in Shagamu, Ogun State. The Crops Protection Chemical Plant is a subsidiary of Kawaram Chanrai Group and has been built to provide complete agricultural solutions to improve crop yield and ensure food security. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima, who was represented at the commissioning by the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Mr. Ali Sabi Abdullahi, endorsed infrastructure and stressed the need for expansion of industrial capacity across the agriculture value chain.
For agriculture and food security in Ogun State.
It's a rewarding and fulfilling day for all present, including the country's Vice President, Kashim Shettima, who is represented by the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, the Ogun State Deputy Governor, National Assembly members, staff of the company, members of the Ogun State Executive Council, and the investing partner.
We have rolled out this production facility, which consists of 3 lines of production with an annual capacity in the first phase of 30 million liters. As has been mentioned before, we have invested so far $12 million in the plant.
The multi-billion-naira agrochemical plant appears to be commencing operations on a bright note, with a commendation from the country's regulatory agency for fulfilling all 6 regulatory requirements for agricultural chemical production.
After a thorough assessment, I am pleased to state that the Springfield Nigeria Limited has demonstrated compliance with the key regulatory requirements, and as a result, NAFDAC has issued a letter of recognition affirming the facility's suitability, the competency of its personnel, and the adequacy of its equipment for agrochemical production.
Governor Dakwa Abiodun, who is represented by his deputy, Mrs. Salako Oyedele, seized the occasion to assure investors of his administration's commitment towards the ease of doing business framework that will ensure that their businesses thrive.
This plant, with an annual production capacity, we have been told, of 30 million liters of herbicides and insecticides, is a strong demonstration of confidence in the local economy and a commitment to not only enhancing local capacity, but reducing our dependency on imported agrochemicals which will in turn save foreign exchange, boost industrialization, and support food security efforts nationwide.
On his part, Nigeria's vice president, who's also represented, commends Springfield for its efforts, which he says aligns with the federal government's agenda for food security.
This initiative is aimed at significantly increasing agricultural production, and it is a clear demonstration of the government's unwavering commitment to supporting and creating an enabling environment for all stakeholders in the agricultural sector.
The speech is over and done with. The Minister of State for Agriculture, the state's deputy governor, and other distinguished personalities joined the minister to cut the ribbon, signifying the commissioning of the project and a tour of the facilities.
And now, today, we're expecting numbers, rebased GDP and CPI numbers from the National Bureau of Statistics. Yesterday, of course, we started this conversation counting down to today, and hopefully we would get those numbers today to tell us the new status of Nigeria when it comes to our gross domestic product, and also the basket that measures our inflation. So yesterday, when I spoke to Mr. Johnson Chukwu, the group CEO of Cowries Asset Management, there's still that skepticism that has followed the new methodology of measuring unemployment, which places unemployment in Nigeria to just about 4%. And the conversation is will that be the case for the rebased GDP and CPI? Let's find out the status or the perspective of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, represented this morning with their head of research, Dr. Joseph Ogebe. Dr. Ogebe, good morning and welcome to Business Morning.
Good morning, Ini. Thanks for having me.
Great. So is the NESG excited about this rebasing? I know the last time GDP got rebased made us the biggest economy on the continent. We were excited about that. Now there seems to be mixed feelings, you know, especially when you look at the rebasing of the CPI. What's the perspective of the NESG on this?
Yes, so Ini, so the rebasing is a welcome exercise from the National Bureau of Statistics. You know, traditionally, every economy should rebase its GDP or CPI in 5 years. But the last time we rebased, as you know, it's almost a decade ago, 2014. But we must give kudos to the NBS for carrying out this exercise. So in terms of the CPI, it's the rebasing, we just need to bring back the weights and the base price to a future period to better reflect consumption pattern and also additional sectors, new sectors added to the economy.
So this fear of we might not get realistic numbers following what we saw with the unemployment data, how do you react to this?
So, Ini, I think we will get realistic numbers. The rebasing exercise, you know, as you know, has been politicized, but it's a common thing we do in every economy. The last time we rebased the GDP, the GDP numbers, nominal numbers, moved by over 80% in nominal terms. But now with the new rebasing, you know, we have about 8 new additional activities being added to the GDP, and we're also moving the GDP reference price period to a much closer period, 2019. So with that, I'm confident that we're going to get, you know, a more accurate number, and it will be very useful and helpful for economic planning and development.
What about for the CPI?
Yes, so the CPI, it's also the same thought. We're going to get a more reflective number. The last time we rebased the CPI, so the current CPI base year is 2019. 2009, that's far apart, so that doesn't give us a true representative of household consumption spending or our spending behavior, right? So now what the NBS is trying to do is to move the price reference period for 2009 forward to 2004. That gives us a more reflective price or more reflective perspective of our current consumption pattern. And I'm also optimistic on the CPI rebasing because it will also help moderate, the expectations on inflation. Currently, we see high inflation expectation also contributing to inflation. But with the rebased numbers, we are expecting a downward, a lower CPI compared to what we currently have. And with this will also serve as, give forward guidance to the monetary policy meetings in subsequent months.
So has the NESG taken these into consideration when you guys gave that forecast of more than 5% GDP growth in 2025?
So yeah, thanks. That's interesting. So we just recently published our macroeconomic outlook in January. So we expect real GDP growth to expand by 5.5%. But our projection is a scenario-based projection. It involves plugging in investment, correcting for business environment and strong regulatory environment. Those things will engender capital in specific sectors, and that will also boost growth. But we did not take into cognizance the rebased GDP because we've not seen the official numbers. What we want to do is to wait for the MBS to publish the official numbers. Then we do some kind of remodeling. We remodel our scenarios, and once they publish the rebased numbers, we come up with an updated GDP forecast that captures the rebased numbers. Because from our understanding, they will also backcast or backtrack the GDP numbers, and we just need to. Our model reads the historical numbers and the current situation, before we go to 5.5%. So we probably will come up with an updated GDP projections. But what we have currently at 5.5% is based on the current base period.
All right, that means we'll be following up on you and ESG to get your updated projection for the year 2025, because when you release that 5.5, everybody got excited because that's even more than the projection of the federal government. But thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Ogebe, the head of research at the NESG, for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Ini. I'll be happy to come back and show our new numbers once the rebased GDP and CPI, we get them hopefully today or early next week. Thank you for having me, Ini.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to that conversation, Dr. Ogebe. Right now, let's talk technology. AI rules the world everywhere, yeah? So Samsung say they have something of interest to you. They have Galaxy S25 series, and they promise you that the issue of data privacy has been solved, at least mostly, and then AI features, well, who am I to say this? I'm not the tech guys. We have joining us here Oge Maduagu. Oge Maduagu is right here with us in the studio. She's the head of marketing at Samsung Electronics West Africa. Hi, Oge. Good to see you. You guys are the techie guys, so you're here to, give us. And then Stephen Okwara. I believe I've had Stephen before on the show. Familiar face. So I hope you won't mind if I don't talk to you much. Let's talk to Oge. Ladies. Joint conversation. Ladies thing, right? All right, you're welcome to the program. So you're here to tell us about Galaxy S25 series, and I do hope I'll be going home with one of them. So, okay, tell us, what's special about this? At this time, Nigerians want to talk more about what I'm going to eat, wear my clothes, buy petrol in my car, get to work, pay my children's school fees. Why should I be thinking of a phone at this time?
So this is not just a phone, it is something that's going to help your life in terms of being even more productive. Yes, there's the whole point around needs on what you would eat, what you would wear, but then again, there's also the point of how can I be more productive? How can I do more with the little time that I have? Delving into the actual differences, Stephen will take it from here.
I was hoping we'd blank him out. Oh my God.
All right. I mean, she said everything. When it comes to technological advancement in mobile industry, Samsung always comes out tops. Last year we introduced the S24, the first full-fledged artificial intelligence smartphone. But we realized along the line it has some limitations, and that limitation lied on the ability to actually navigate, execute multiple actions across apps, which was kind of a bit of a limitation, and ability to preempt your next action. So it was more or less an assistant, okay, but you need to give it a physical command. Now, on the S25, we improved the technology and we moved it from being just an assistant to an agent. So your device can actually preempt your action and then advise you accordingly. Okay, for instance, I can be on YouTube and I just ask my device to summarize this video for me and save it on my notes. So without
but that makes you lazy, Stephen.
No, see, it makes it easy and then makes it more productive. And then I can have a natural human-like conversation with my mobile phone. I can wake up this morning and say, you know what? Hi, how you doing? What's the weather like or weather situation like in Lagos today? And my device will give me all the lowdown. And I'll say, okay, is it a good time to work out or any kind of activity? So it helps you. It makes your life easier. It makes you work more efficiently and become more productive.
So you now have a companion.
You have a companion, AI companion. An agent preempts your action and then tries to make life better for you, help you become more productive and work more efficiently.
Yeah, but the thing with this also is the exposure to the world because of your data. Because if it can preempt, my actions, or I can have conversations, that means I'm more exposed to it, and we don't know where that data is going, and that's a fear. That's a fear in all of this.
So we actually consider that, and that's why we introduced what we call the personal data engine on this smartphone. So it allows you to do everything that has to do with your data processing right on your smartphone. And then if there's a need for you to connect to the cloud, and get your generative data and all of that, we have what we call the post-quantum cryptography that actually ensures that your device is encrypted end to end. So you're not exposed. Actually. You're protected. So you're working on your device, you're enjoying all the goodies, getting more productive, and you're secure. I mean, we all know the environment that we are in. So we were very, very conscious in designing this device, actually.
All right, okay, so there's the Smart Money Woman Partnership. What's that?
So this is something we're really proud of. Just like Steve had said, the Galaxy S25 is a powerful device. Comes with, enhanced camera, 8K video recording, and what we said was, let's try this out. Let's look for, new ways to create. So we identified the Smart Money Woman RSA with someone who had already put out this body of work that had been internationally accepted, been on fantastic platforms, Netflix, DSTV, all of that. And we said, come, let's try this out. So what she did was to write us a spin-off episode based off of her main character, all filmed with the Galaxy S25, end to end. So no additions, no nothing, no DSLR cameras, everything. By the time this film comes out in the coming weeks, you understand the magic that we created. It's an absolute dream for creators.
I'm just sending some people out of a job. For instance, my colleague who is a cameraman, if I can do this with my phone, I don't need him anymore.
There's always a place for him.
There's
always a place for him, definitely. There's always a place for the photographers.
But you do need people to know how to use all of this. Is it for a certain group of people? Is it, who are you targeting?
It's everybody, really. As long as almost everyone has a device. Everybody has a device, basically. So it's everybody. As long as you're literate and you can read and you can see, that is what it is. And let's not forget, this device also comes with local languages. Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa.
It speaks local languages.
Speaks local language. So it's all in one. Like we said, this is a dream that we've just created in Samsung.
Yeah, so when you say it speaks local language, it's my companion. So if I'm in my house, I can decide to use my local dialect, and then I'm having a good conversation with my phone. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so what it does basically, it literally changes your interface. So everything written in English automatically is written in your local language, your preferred local language, be it Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba.
What about Ibibio?
No, we'll get there.
That's cheating. That's cheating. We're all Nigerians.
We will get there. For now, we'll have just
the major.
The three major.
Okay, but you have to get there fast.
I promise that we'll actually fulfill anyways.
Then, as I said at the beginning, a lot of people just want to think of the basics now. Is there any plan to help people get on board this? Perhaps I need it for my job, but I can't just pay for it at once. Is there any purchasing plan for?
Absolutely. So we have this instrumental pay plan. We call, in quotes, pay small. That actually lets people, pay instrumentally over a period of time with almost 0% interest. Okay, that's what product offering. And of course, we have the option of trading. If you have your older device, regardless of the brand, actually. So even if
regardless of the brand, so you can do an Apple for a Samsung?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Anyone you want.
Wow.
Absolutely. So you can actually trade in, and then you do the plus and minus, and voila, you have your own device. But that's not all. We have other fantastic offerings. For instance, if life happens, after spending this money and life happens to you, accidentally damage your screen, we have a protection for it. So what that simply translates to is with the Samsung Care Plus, if your screen is broken, Samsung takes up part of the responsibility from you. So instead of paying a whooping sum of almost 400,000 or 500,000 to get your screen fixed, we are paying just a token of 2,500 naira. 22,500.
Ah, 2,500. I wanted to jump on that.
22,500 naira. So what that simply means is it takes up a lot of burden from the customer.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the packages we put together, understanding of course, the economy and the situation we are at the moment.
So when you say the installment payment, do you have a time limit, a maximum?
So we have, depending on the partner, so we have the 4 months, we have the 6 months plan. So it depends on whichever you're comfortable with.
I'm scared of asking how much the installments and all of that. But how do people access all of this? Do they walk into any shop? Do they come to a Samsung office?
All Samsung authorized dealership or partners
in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, actually, whether in the north, south, east, west, wherever. So they are literally everywhere.
Okay, all right. If you say it makes my job easier, I'll look this.
Not just your job, your entire life.
My entire life, but it will not make me lazy.
No, it won't.
No,
it makes you more productive.
It makes you more productive, actually.
Okay.
Things that ordinarily would take you hours to execute.
I
do that in just a couple of
All
minutes.
right, thank you so much. Okay, Maduagu, did you want to say something?
Oh, yes. Our pre-order is currently ongoing. So if you want to own this device, be amongst the first to actually get this device.
Oh, you don't have it down yet. It's pre-order now.
Yes, so
okay.
It's going to be available in the next
And there is incentive for pre-order.
Absolutely. Gift worth over 400,000 naira.
Oh, my word.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Maduagu, Head of Marketing, Samsung Electronics, West Africa, and Stephen Okwara. And I'll see you before this year ends again. That seems to be the talkative of the group. Head Product Management, Mobile Experience. Thank you so much. Wish you the best in your new products.
Thank you.
All right, so that's how much we can take on Business Morning for this morning. Don't worry, 55 minutes of business is coming at 1 p.m. That will be Business Incorporated. I'll see you then. Making it. Hand you back to Kayla Migwa.
Closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted.
The president of the ECOWAS Commission announcing the lifting of sanctions imposed on the Republic of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Sanctions imposed in line with ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance after the democratic governments in the country were overthrown. The sanctions were intended to pressure the countries to restore constitutional order and return to democratic governance. Instead, the three countries announced their withdrawal from ECOWAS and formed the Alliance of the Sahel states.
The global environment has changed. If you know, we are now in a multipolar world, and then there is no unanimity even in the regional, continental, and international community against wrongdoers. So ECOWAS was in the right to apply the rules of its protocols.
Following the lifting of sanctions, other efforts were made by ECOWAS and the ECOWAS chairperson, President Bola Tinubu, to resolve the face-off.
It was a collective decision of the ECOWAS heads of state and government to impose sanctions on these countries. And within ECOWAS itself, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was disposed towards diplomacy, towards engagement, which is why several delegations were sent. The presidents of Togo and Sierra Leone were appointed as mediators to reach out to these countries so that they would be convinced to remain in ECOWAS. Unfortunately, those countries decided they wanted to leave.
The adamant position of the trio has multiple implications.
For the population, many of whom are operating in the informal sector, hardly recognize the borders between our countries. Things are going to be even harder.
You have the West African Health Organization, WAHU. WAHU is based in Burkina Faso. Yeah? So, in Ouagadougou. They leave ECOWAS. It means ultimately, if they insist beyond that 6-month period, it means you have to do away with WAHU. WAHU has to relocate from Ouagadougou, from Burkina Faso, where it employs a lot of people.
As the withdrawal effectively takes effect, the president of ECOWAS has announced some measures taken in the interest of the people and in the spirit of regional solidarity.
National passports and identity cards bearing ECOWAS logo and which are being held by citizens of the 3 countries, Burkina Faso, Republic of Mali, and the Republic of Niger, will remain recognized by ECOWAS member states until further notice.
The coming months will be crucial in determining how relations between ECOWAS and the 3 countries evolve. However, it is clear that everything must be done to ensure stability, security, and continued cooperation. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Expanding a little more on the conversation about the exit of the Sahel states, the Alliance of Sahel States. So we have with us in the studio a lecturer at the Department of International Relations at Nile University, Dr. Abdulrazak Ibrahim. It's good to have you with us on the program.
It's good to be here.
I mean, when we look at the new Alliance of Sahel States, and they seem like they want to be together. In fact, President Ibrahim Traore was saying that the fight against terrorism is because they're creating a regional force, 5,000 man strong, and they're going to have the Alliance of Sahel States passports, you know. And they say, look, that their fight against terrorism is a war of decolonization. And we do know that on the 30th of January, the International Conference Against Terrorism is going to be holding on the 30th in Niamey. So let's talk a little bit about the Alliance of Sahel States. We see the celebration among the people in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger. They seem to welcome these military rulers and celebrating what they were celebrating that yesterday or the day before was the 1-year anniversary, because of course this intent to leave ECOWAS was in January of last year. Talk to us a little bit about this alliance and some of the extenuating circumstances that may have led to this gung-ho attitude of these countries.
Thank you again for having me. This alliance between the Sahel states is very important among the trio countries that have chosen to leave the democratic system. And one of the implications or the methodology that the military adopt each time that they seize power, remember, military intervention is always through the barrel of gun. They try to bring out policies and programs to win the heart of the people. As such, people will be seeing them as the new messiah, and the policies that they've rolled out will now be used in championing and winning the heart of the people. You see, at times, they bring out some subsidy programs so that people can think that, yes, they are out to really save them. However, taking into cognizance, irrespective of these policies that have been rolled out, one should know that one of the major dangers of military intervention is that the right of the people will be denied. And having a leader that has not been chosen by the people through democratic system shows that it is important that Africa and ECOWAS having keyed into the democratic ideas that one cannot afford to leave this critical system of government that has been globally adopted by countries.
Well, you do know, as a lecturer, especially in this international space, that there is a decline in parts of the world, in parts of Africa, especially these parts of Africa. There's a decline in the trust of democratic processes. Let's not pretend that democracy has been fantastic to these people over the years. In many cases, they point out the fact that their governance has not been theirs. They're saying the country wasn't theirs. One of their major issues, sovereignty, regional security, economic autonomy. This is a war against France, who they consider their colonial masters. And if the democratic governments that have been there in many of the minds of these people have been paying lip service, and basically acquiescing to every need of France, it's only natural that they would rebel against it. But in your view, you're saying the military is not the solution. It's a ruse. They're trying to win you over, and then they now show you that you have no rights in a few months' time?
Yes. Democracy is not an end in itself. However, instead of blaming the system in totality, we should blame the leadership.
Individuals.
Let me put this analogy. If you have a good car, a brand new car, and it's being driven by a driver that is insane, so to speak, you will not be able to get to your destination. So, democracy in Africa and the way it's being played, if you look at it relatively with the Western world, you see that democratic ideals are what is keeping them up till date. People could exercise their freedom of speech, movement, and equally recall some of their leaders that are not performing.
It does feel like in many ways the people of these three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, have sacrificed their personal freedoms and democratic freedoms on the altar of sovereignty, regional security, and economic autonomy. You say that's not a good trade.
That's not a good trade, because if you look at the security issues now, you will notice that there's nothing that have really changed. Instead, in the corridor of Burkina Faso, the issues are becoming, the security concerns are worrisome. They are becoming more and more, they are deteriorating in all ramifications. So this is to show you that rather than splitting at this moment, there is window of opportunity for them to still sit down and then champion the cause of leadership and democracy. If they have bring out or roll out a program on how to become a democratic system again, I am sure that the ECOWAS community will be ready to absorb them for a particular period of time so that they could key into the democratic ideals.
So let's talk about ECOWAS. It's been a question many people have had, the impact of ECOWAS on the countries within its region. It's supposed to, this bloc is supposed to boost itself economically. We're supposed to do a lot of collaborations. We should see wealth and prosperity in ECOWAS. But what we're seeing doesn't tally with what ECOWAS was created for. The creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, in your view, does that in any way negatively impact the importance of ECOWAS and its ability to grow this bloc that we live in?
Yes, ECOWAS is a laudable organization, regional organization. We don't have just regional organization in West Africa. We have in East Africa, we have the ASEAN, and a host of others. So West Africa cannot afford not to key in this type of regional organization, most especially that the UN, the AU have recognized ECOWAS as the body that stands for, that represents their interests, so that collectively West Africans can champion their cause. So having said that, it is important to reiterate at this moment that irrespective of the shortfalls that ECOWAS might have, it is better that ECOWAS remain, and then we look at some of the challenges. Some of the challenges are not actually inward. Some of the challenges are still the problems that are relating to these ECOWAS member states being what? Relating back to their former colonial masters, which is one of the concerns of the Sahel states, because they believe that the neo-colonialism system that have been put in place by their former colonial masters, most especially among the Francophone countries, are so ravaging that they are yet to have their full autonomy and sovereignty. And of course, with this in place, countries have to have concerns that how do they checkmate these excesses of their colonial masters, because from economy to security, all aspects of their life is being managed and controlled by their former colonial masters. But if you look at other states, like the Nigerian situation, if you look at Ghana, you see that relatively, we don't have this absolute control by our former colonial masters. As such, one cannot just divorce the fact that ECOWAS is not performing, because there are huge opportunities that countries can derive from being member of ECOWAS states.
When you say ECOWAS is not performing, what do you mean?
Well, relatively, because their set goals, first and foremost, is sufficiency in terms of economic, to create or to prevent the barriers, the trade barriers that hinder economic trade between the member states, and again to boost democracy within the sub-region.
What do you think is responsible for this inability to deliver?
What I think, in my own opinion, that is responsible, if you look at it from the historical memory lane, the founding fathers of Africa have a vision, and their vision is Africa first. And now, if you look at the type of democracy that is being played, is economically dominated. If you are not rich, you cannot be a leader. So the concerns that we are having with those that are taking the position of leadership in most of these African states now is that some of them want to remain in power at all costs. They don't see Africa as their main objective and the concerns of Africa and the people of their sub-region. Not until and unless all the leaders could come together and focus and roll out programs that will capture the African concerns, then I think it will still be the same ball game.
I mean, when we look at Nigeria's foreign policy, and at least we learned it from secondary school, even in university when we were studying, Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. And in many ways, what we're taught was that that was how it was supposed to be across the continent, especially in this, our bloc in West Africa. Do you find that is that still reasonable in today's world? And I'm saying that because what we're seeing, and we're seeing it in the United States, we're seeing it across the world. Populism, let's build ourselves. We just saw Donald Trump moving money away, asking that, look, all this funding for, we have things to do at home. You know, everyone is trying to put their country first, so that we don't go cap in hand every time to be begging for money everywhere. How do we ensure that we generate enough revenue to ensure prosperity for our people? Should Africa remain the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy in your view, or should we start to change that and look a little bit more inwards?
Actually, there is a shift from that foreign policy outlook of Africa being the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy and a host of other African countries. Most African countries are adopting a new paradigm of non-alignment, because from the big brother role that Nigeria have played in the past in assisting some of the countries like the apartheid regime, you can see that we didn't derive much from it. As such, Nigeria needs to re-strategize by adopting the non-alignment strategy so that they could They could interact with other players in the global space, not just Africa. However, having common similarities, historical background, and antecedent problems, it is important for African countries to still be united under one umbrella, most especially like the regional, sub-regional organizations like ECOWAS, because collectively they can champion the cause of Africa in the international system.
I mean, when you talk about non-alignment, I was looking at the message someone sent to me. The person said, what do you think the impact of the non-alignment that we're seeing, what do you think will be the impact of this on blocks like ECOWAS and organizations that are supposed to be regional in nature and, you know, build their people? If everyone starts to adopt the non-alignment, how can these blocks exist and be profitable to the people that live there?
Yes, actually, the non-alignment means you position yourself strategically to welcome everyone. If you want to look at it from the economic stance of view, it's like having a supermarket that is open to all the prospective customers. So not just having African as the centerpiece, that irrespective of your interest, because foreign relation is about interest, it's a game of interest. And having African as the centerpiece of our foreign policy in the past have cost Nigerian a great, huge sum of money. Not just money in terms of our military, we've lost a whole lot of people. And again, there are some bargains in the international system that we are supposed to adopt by relating with other countries in the international space that Nigerians have jettisoned just because Africa remains as her foreign centerpiece of her foreign policy. Now, look at it. If we take a leaf from what is happening in US, the new president of United States of America put American first, jettison the previous hegemonic position that the US want to police the affairs of the whole world. You notice that these have attracted a lot of hatred to the country. So we need to put Nigeria first, then subsequently African second. However, just as I mentioned earlier, it is still important that, yes, our common concerns need to be discussed under one umbrella.
Can we discuss this democracy?
Yes.
Let's play political science. This democracy that we are practicing in Africa, is it really working for us? We've been hearing conversations, even from former President Olusegun Obasanjo, about changing our type of governance to suit our peculiarities as a people. It does feel, in many areas, that we have borrowed a system that works for the people that created the system, and we're trying to impose it on ourselves here. When we look at countries like Rwanda, we're so excited about how Paul Kagame is doing well and how the country... Have you gone there? It's not the same type of democracy that we're practicing in Nigeria that they are practicing there. The sacrifices that they have to make for the system of government that works for the people of those places, is that something maybe African leaders have to start thinking about? Maybe the OAU has to start thinking about what we define as democracy. Because in many ways, when we look at our system here, it does feel like we need something tailored to what we do. Do you agree with this point of view?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with this, because as a teacher, we've taught our students pre-colonial system of Africa. And looking at the futures, you know that Nigeria is a heterogeneous society. We have different variations that have made it to be difficult for us to be able to adopt absolute system of democracy that is being practiced in other climes that are not having these challenges of division. So if we look at our own, there's so much concentration of power at the center. If you can decentralize so that the different nations that sum up to make up the body called Nigerian, who have their own system, whereby having the center as their own representative that will be out to protect their interests in the international forum, I think that will do us a better deal than just practicing hook, line, and sinker, what is being practiced in US, for example. Then we just adopted the system into our own scenario.
When it comes to ECOWAS and the democracies within ECOWAS, okay, so these three countries decided that they were going to go through military coups. You know, we say, no, that's not what we stand for as ECOWAS. We believe in democracy. in this block, and we sanctioned them. You know, now they have said, oh, we're leaving, and they left, and we say, no, it's fine. We can still be friends, but we insist on democratic principles here. Now, going forward, some people have posited that maybe ECOWAS should start looking at the democracies within its bloc and seeing since you're going to be looking at people's politics, because the first criticism was you are the economic community of West African states, not the political community of West Africa. So why are you delving into people's politics, into the politics of sovereign nations? Well, if we say, no, we stand for something, we stand for democracy, and you are not practicing what we stand for as a bloc. Very good. Now, let's take a look at ECOWAS and the democracies within ECOWAS. Are those democracies delivering to the people? How do we ensure that we do not have revolts against democratic governments that seem not to be providing the dividends of democracy to its people? Is that something ECOWAS should also be thinking about?
Yes, I think it is important for ECOWAS to be thinking about this, which of course they are thinking about, because in 2012, ECOWAS have adopted in their charter democracy and good governance as part of their cause that they need to champion across African states. This is not the first time that military is intervening in politics, and which they've been accommodated in the ECOWAS sub-region organization. However, having adopted this stand in their charter in 2012, ECOWAS sees that the only system that is practicable, that you can measure, and again, that people should have the right to vote for their leader, because irrespective of any of the system that you want to bring into this type of sub-region that are dominated by heterogeneous society, is going to be a Herculean task for you to be able to make the selection. And that is why they brought out this game of what? Selecting through the ballot papers. Now, if you look at it critically, the futures of democracy is laudable. However, the system and the leadership of Nigerians have chosen, and other African states, you have chosen an avenue whereby some of them are just using this position to enrich themselves. And what is responsible for this? I want to say that it's institutional failure. If our institutions are up and doing, like the EFCC, the police system, all this will ensure that, yes, democracy will be a thing that everybody will want to key into, just like what we have seen in other climes, most especially in the Western climb, that everybody is now striving to want to jackpot because their democracy is striving. So why is it that Africans cannot take a leave from that by making sure that our institutions are up and doing and working well, so that we will not be part of those that will be considered as, okay, this is a fallout from the ideas of democracy.
I mean, when you say the push of ECOWAS is democracy and good governance, in your view, in what ways is ECOWAS looking into good governance in its democracies within the bloc?
Yes.
Are they insisting on good governance from these leaders? We have leaders who want to stay in power perpetually. We have poverty levels rising. We have insecurity that has gone on for decades, cross-border insecurity that nothing has been done about. Is ECOWAS really looking into the good governance bit of this deal?
ECOWAS is not just looking at it. However, there are steps taken, positive steps taken to ensure that this is actualized. Let me cite an example. In Gambia, when Yahya Jammeh insisted on not leaving the country after the election, there were interventions by ECOWAS that ensured that, yes, he chose to leave the corridor of power because he was democratically defeated. Again, there in this sub-region, you see that there are military joint task force. Yet, the issue of banditry insecurity in the sub-region is still increasing. Now, let's assume that we don't even have a platform or a forum that is bringing people together to collectively champion this cause of fighting the insecurity. That means it's going to be very difficult for us to live as a nation. So ECOWAS is doing a lot. However, a lot of challenges are equally surmounting their effort that is making it to look like they are not performing at all.
All right, well, we do have to wrap it up there, Dr. Abdulrazak Ibrahim. Thank you very much for your insights this morning. And of course, we'll be watching to see how both the Alliance of Sahel States and the reshaped map of ECOWAS, we'll be watching to see what kind of developments happen in the course of the year. But I want to thank you very much for making out the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Abdulrazak Ibrahim there, lecturer at the Department of International Relations, NAL University, joining us right here in the studios. All right, let's take a look at some of the messages that we have. We tried to take a few earlier, but let's move on. Professor Imono Kainakena, talking about research institutes. He says, research is Siamese with general understanding of creative work undertaken on a systematic basis to increase the body of knowledge. The knowledge, in turn, is used to devise new applications and improve the entrepreneurial environment by enhancing innovation, increase productivity to boost the standard of living in an emerging economy like Nigeria. All right, well, thank you very much for your messages. And also, Honorable Ademola, thank you very much. I can see your message as well. Well, that's all the time we have for Sunrise Daily this morning. Thank you for being with us all week. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.